Would you like a glass of wine?
No thanks. I never drink when I fly.
Hello and welcome to the first comic synopsis from Tony Moltoni's collection. Today I'm going to focus on the events leading up to Doomsday's fateful meeting with Superman and the mystery surrounding Doomsday's creation and arrival on Earth. I will explain the story from Year One Doomsday comic that was released in 1995 and how Doomsday made his way towards Earth that led up to the 1993 comic The Death of Superman, which then led to a comic line that consisted of 22 comics that spanned between April 15th, 1993 to September 2nd, 1993. The line focused on the heroes that arrived after Superman's death. This line is known as the Reign of the Supermen. First off, we will stop at the Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey that was released in 1994. Over 245,000 years in the past, Doomsday was created by a mysterious alien named Bertrand in the early days of Krypton. After 40 years of trouble and toil, Bertrand created a successful ultimate life form, a life form that can come back after death and grow even stronger and evolve past whatever killed him. He was Doomsday, known at the time as Ultimate. Soon after Bertrand was killed by Doomsday, he then went on a killing spree across many planets before making his way to Earth. In the Year One Doomsday comic, Doomsday first arrived at Balon 5, a planet with a toxic atmosphere but rich in resources. Darkseid happened to be there at the time, and he was trying to seize the resources. Soon after, a war broke out between them and Doomsday. Darkseid had to retreat and leave due to the growing toxicity of the atmosphere. Then Doomsday hitched a ride on Darkseid's ship and then escaped, crash landing on Kundia, a planet with many warring clans. The clans put their troubles aside and had band together to make a plan to be rid of Doomsday. They built a suit of armor to withstand his attacks and planned to lure him on a rocket and shoot him off the planet. With the help of a warrior named Kobold, he successfully lured him onto the rocket, and Doomsday was shot from the planet. Sadly, Kobold sacrificed himself in the end to save his planet from Doomsday. Later on, a Green Lantern named Zeron Pell, who was called in after reports of a ship being attacked, he soon found himself in a fateful meeting between himself and Doomsday. The meeting ended in Zeron's death and the loss of his power ring to Doomsday. With ring in hand, Doomsday then made his way towards the Guardians of the Universe. During his travels, he killed hundreds of Green Lanterns who tried to stop his approach. But once he arrived, one of the Guardians of Oa sacrificed himself to kill off Doomsday and save themselves. The Guardian of Oa caused a massive tear in space, which then sent Doomsday's body to a world called Calaton, which soon after his revival, he then ripped the planet to pieces for 3 long years. With few left living on Calaton, the last of the royal family members combined their life forces into a single energy, becoming the hero known as the Radiant. They then fought and killed Doomsday with a huge blast of energy which destroyed over a fifth of their planet as well. Doomsday was then shackled and masked, then shot off into space towards Earth.
Now that's a punchline.
In the Death of Superman comic, Doomsday eventually crash-landed on Earth, but the impact buried his casket far deep underground, and as you know, Doomsday was not dead. In time, he would come back stronger than he was before. Once Doomsday finally awoke and broke free from his underground prison, he soon encountered the Justice League, but Doomsday was too strong. The Justice League had no chance, the entire team was obliterated in a matter of minutes. Doomsday had one hand tied behind his back, which attracted the attention of Superman. Booster Gold said Doomsday's rampage resembled the arrival of Doomsday, so thus he was given the name. Doomsday was drawn to the city of Metropolis after the fight with Justice League because of the many billboards and TV ads showing violent wrestling, which drove his bloodlust crazy. Soon after arriving, he encountered Superman, and Doomsday realized his power was a match for his own. He grew a great lust to kill Superman because in the process of his creation, of dying over and over, his genes developed the ability to sense Kryptonians and treat them as a grave threat. They fought locked equally in a powerful struggle. Seeing how Doomsday fought, Superman realized Doomsday would not stop the destruction if he was defeated, and he had to protect the people of Metropolis. so the two of them fought relentlessly until the bitter end, which ended when they both struck each other in the head, landing fatal blows, both dying in front of the Daily Planet building in Metropolis. Now with that aside, we will shift our focus to the first comic from the line The Reign of the Supermen, known as The Adventures of Superman 500. The Adventures of Superman 500 starts up in a hospital room. The reader soon learns that Jonathan Kent has suffered a heart attack, and the doctors are doing all they can to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Jonathan is in a coma. He has a vision of his son Clark. Jonathan tries to grab him, but he gets pulled away. Clark then says it's not his time to die. Then he flies off into the light with some figures that look like Kryptonians. Meanwhile, in the city of Metropolis, Gangbuster is perusing the streets and finds a drug deal going down. He then jumps down and takes them on. He first quickly takes out the seller. He then attacks the buyer, who was thought to be reaching for a gun, but as it drops to the ground, it turns out it was a police badge. He just broke up a drug sting operation, not a drug deal. The cops then circle him and then mention a warrant for his arrest. Gangbuster quickly escapes to the roof, but not before he gets shot. The cops make their way up after him, eventually cornering him, forcing him to jump off the roof into an icy river below. Later, he was saved and pulled out of the river by a homeless guy. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Jonathan, still in a coma, continues to have visions of his past, stumbling around a battlefield during the Korean War, discovering his dead friends and relatives. Realizing no one's there to help him, he then marches off to a field that resembles his father's cornfield in Canton. Shortly after his arrival, he falls into a deep ditch. He's then pulled out by a demon commanded by Blaze. She then offers to help him rescue the Airman in exchange for his soul. Jonathan denies her and jumps back in the hole that he was pulled from. Falling endlessly, Jonathan eventually finds himself floating in space and sees Kismet. After explaining why he's there, she decides to help him and send him off to Krypton. Shortly after, Jonathan wakes up on Krypton and sees his son Clark being carried off by some Kryptonians. Jonathan tries to run up to Clark and awaken him, but gets stopped by the Kryptonians. Jonathan then discovers that they were wraiths all along and screams at Clark to wake. Clark then wakes up and realizes what is occurring and takes them out and flies off with Jonathan, eventually escaping together. Jonathan then wakes up from his coma saying, "Clark is back." With the news, Lois hops on the next plane to Metropolis to see Superman's tomb. While on the flight over, she looks out her window to see a red blur fly by. Could it be, she thought to herself? But then she remembers how Superman died in her arms some time ago. Eventually, Lois finally arrives and makes her way into the Superman's tomb to then discover that it's empty. Meanwhile, there are news reports all over the city reporting sightings of Superman. Off in the city, there's a shootout occurring between a gang and the police near the ruined skyscraper that Doomsday knocked over. There's a man that then wakes up and crawls out from the rubble in between them. The shooting then stops and they see the man wearing ripped overalls and carrying a sledgehammer, screaming, "Gotta stop Doomsday." Another reported a sighting of a man resembling Superman stopping a robbery from occurring, claiming to be Superman risen from the dead, passing through fire and darkness, to be changed anew. One report came in at 4:17 a.m. shortly after Jonathan was revived. Deep in a secret government research center, a code red was given, and they called in Guardian to help them. After blowing their way in, they find an empty pod that has a ripped piece of clothing hanging there that resembles Superman's insignia. Soon after that, Guardian then discovers that whatever had escaped from the lab, that it was part of a secret cloning experiment called Cadmus Project, which used Superman's DNA. He was then revealed to the reader as Superboy. Later on, back at the tomb, after Lois had left, another one resembling Superman flies in and destroys the plaque naming Superman's tomb. A citizen then asked if he was Superman. He turned to him and it revealed a mechanical face, and he replies with, "Yes, I'm back." Of the four super beings that appear, two of them trying to pose as the real Superman. One of them was known as Superboy, or the Metropolis Kid. Another was known as the Last Son of Krypton, or the Eradicator. The third is a half-man, half-machine, who looked the most like Superman and was called Cyborg Superman, while the fourth and last was a steelworker named John Henry Irons, better known as Steel.
The real questions here are far more pressing. Who are these new guys? Why are they here? What is their place in a world without a Superman?